offers penance to the victims of the violence then and apologises to the families of the victims. Thank you.
接住落嚟咧係維吾爾族代表Rahima Mahmud。
Our next speaker will be Rahima Mahmud, a human rights activist. She is the HK Project Director of the World Uyghur Congress, Chair of Stop Uyghur Genocide, and please.
Thank you. It is a privilege to speak today and to be joined by allies that I have not met before, as well as those I have known for years. 33 years ago today, thousands were murdered in Tiananmen Square by the Chinese state. Their crimes was believing in a better future, one in which they could exercise their basic freedoms, vote in fair elections, and read objective and honest news. That vision of the future was destroyed when the Chinese Communist Party rolled tanks into Tiananmen Square and used brutal violence to ensure no liberation movement was ever allowed to flourish again. I was there just a few days before June 4th, and I remember the hope and strength of the student leaders and the protesters. They deserved solidarity and protection from the international community. But when the time came for the world to act, calls for support fell on deaf ears. Now the Uyghurs, my people, understand exactly what it is to plead for help from a world that does not want to listen. For over 5 years now, we have been demanding action on the ongoing genocide being perpetrated against our people by the Chinese government. Those of us in exile have watched helplessly as our homeland is turned into a police state, children taken from their parents, our culture destroyed, women forcibly sterilized, and millions of our fellow Uyghurs detained in concentration camps. Many of you will have seen the photographs that were leaked of thousands of Uyghur detainees, their fear painted across their faces. Many of you will also have seen UN Human Rights Chief Michelle Bachelet refuse to condemn these atrocities, instead framing them as anti-terrorism measures. After decades of struggle and more than 5 years of genocide, we deserve so much more from international institutions. And yet, here we are, once again, demanding the bare minimum from those that pledge to protect communities like mine. After the Tiananmen Square massacre, the world did not take action needed to break Chinese authoritarianism. Instead, they allowed it to grow. Now, Tibetans are more under threat than ever. Hong Kongers have lost their freedom entirely. Those in Taiwan are preparing to defend their country, and the Uyghurs are facing extinction. The world has failed to honor the memory of those that died for democracy at Tiananmen Square. But we continue to draw strength from their bravery in our own activism. We refuse to allow the Chinese state to erase Tiananmen from the global memory. And the protesters' spirit lives on in our own resilience. So today, I will join friends and allies in mourning those that were lost on June 4th, 1989, and in committing to carry their legacy by continuing to demand change and justice for all of us. Thank you.
望望六四，
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 光復香港，
光復香港，
時代革命，光復香港，
時代革命，
社會反抗 ，Fight for freedom， Fight for freedom，
Stand with Hong Kong。接住落嚟係西藏代表塔沙達斯詞人啊，中文名係。
Please welcome our next speaker, 達斯詞人, the founder of Human Rights Network for Tibet and Taiwan, who was detained during protests against the Beijing 2008 Olympics in Japan.
大家好，我是在流亡出生的一个藏人，从来没有去过我自己国家，我也没有看过我自己的国家。我知道，是流亡出生的藏人，在世界各地有第二代、第三代的藏人在努力中。我在印度的时候，33年之前，我听到在北京。那么多中国的年轻人抵抗中共，那个时候，我觉得有一个希望，可能中共会改变。但是已经过了33年，中共根本没有改变的。有时候我遇到中国的年轻人跟中国人民的时候，我要想告诉他们，就是说。中共会洗脑，中共会让中国人跟西藏人又弄了很多矛盾。藏人没有讨厌中国人，我们觉得中国人跟西藏人、维吾尔人、蒙古人，大家一样，大家在不快乐跟中共底下。中共不管你是汉人、藏人、维吾尔人，不听中共的话，他马上会杀。所以33年之前，那么多中国年轻人抵抗中共的时候，中共没有分，他也是有杀自己的小孩。所以今天在流亡中，那么多藏人在流亡中没办法回去自己的家，达赖喇嘛尊者没有回家，他没办法回去自己的家。同时一样，中国的民主人士也没办法回去自己的家。现在那么多香港的年轻人在流亡中，他们也没办法回去他们自己的家。我重点要想讲，大家要团结，团结的力量有一天会达到我们的目的。所以我希望我们都是在流亡民主自由国家上的老百姓，大家要努力，未来中国的人权，未来西藏的人权，为了维吾尔的人权，所以我们都是在一个民主的教育体下长大的。所以我希望，在中国体下的这些 少数民族跟中国人在非常苦难中，已经160几个藏人已经自反的方式表达自己的意见，中共根本没有改变的。我们没有鼓励自反的这些英雄的藏人，但是我们知道他们有放弃他们的生命，为了国家，为了人民。那我就是一个受难者，跟我一样的很多受难者在世界各地流浪，没办法回去自己家。但是我很骄傲，要跟大家讲，虽然就是我出生在一个难民，应该会难民中我会死掉，但是达赖喇嘛尊者在民主上给我们一个民主的教育。今天一个难民的藏人可以投票选自己的领导人，但是在中国底下的这些藏人、这些中国人根本没有这个机会要投票自己的领导人，没办法要提出来自己的意见。中共说什么一定要听中共的，不能你有生命危险，你有麻烦。所以最后我知道你现在流亡60多年，60多年这样算起来蛮简单，但是过了60年非常非常辛苦。但是因为藏传佛教的教育体系，我觉得我这个出生是未来国家、未来人民，我可以放弃我自己的生命，未来的西藏。那未来的西藏不一定就是一个西藏人。今天我这个扎西之人在一直努力为了西藏独立，有可能西藏独立的时候扎西之人死掉了，我可能变得怎么样我也不知道。今天的我请到习近平死完之后变成西藏人的话，我也这些努力是为了他们的。所以藏人的藏传佛教的教育体下，我们在永远不会放弃。所以我最后要想跟大家一起加油 ！Free Tibet! Free Tibet! Free Turkestan! Free Turkestan! Free Southern Mongolia! Free Hong Kong! Free Hong Kong! Keep Taiwan free! Keep Taiwan free! 谢谢。Free Tibet!
Free Tibet!
Free Tibet! Stop Uyghur genocide!
Stop Uyghur genocide!
Stop Uyghur genocide!
接住落嚟係另一位西藏代表Tasha。
Our next speaker will be Tasing Pasing, a Tibetan writer, activist, and human rights advocate, former chairperson of Tibetan community in Britain, founder of the Global Alliance for Tibet and Persecuted Minorities.
Thank you. Thank you very much to all the organizers for this much needed protest. 3 protests today to show our support and solidarity with the Chinese people in mainland China, Hong Kong, Taiwan, and around the world. In addition to the brief introduction, I want to say that I am a Tibetan refugee born in a refugee camp in Nepal. I have faced the hardships committed by the Chinese state, the Chinese regime. My parents fled Tibet. They followed our spiritual leader, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, into India and neighboring countries since 1959. Friends, I stand here today just outside the Chinese embassy in London. What I call the terror cell of the CCP regime in the UK, to remind the international community once again that the Chinese regime has massacred hundreds of innocent young Chinese students 33 years ago in June 1989. Tanks and troops were sent to mercilessly kill young students who were simply engaging in a pro-democracy movement for the good of the whole Chinese population. Some of you may have experienced the brutal crackdown. Some of your family members and friends may have endured the heinous crime committed by the CCP authorities. We do know that the barbaric acts committed by the Chinese Communist Party against its own people is nothing new though. Atrocities committed by the CCP over the past 100 years have amounted to over 20,000 lives lost in China. Needless to mention the killing of Tibetans and Uyghurs in their homelands. The CCP was established through the power of bullets and guns. This annual anniversary of the Tiananmen massacre, started by very dedicated Chinese friends, including Dr. Stephen Hung and his friends in London 33 years ago, has now become the world's major pro-democracy protest hub to commemorate this poignant chapter in history after Beijing enforced Hong Kong national security law on 30th of June 2021. Like my friends from East Turkestan and China's other occupied territories, taking part in today's protest is a show of our solidarity and support. That is from the people of Tibet to our Chinese friends in mainland China, Hong Kong, and around the world for your quest for freedom, justice, and democracy. My country, Tibet, too was illegally invaded by the People's Republic of China after the CCP came to power in October 1949. Over 1 million Tibetans died as a direct result of China's occupation of Tibet. Today, Tibetans are facing repression. There are restrictions on the freedom of movement within Tibet, and Tibetans cannot contact their families abroad. However, the CCP regime allows the Han Chinese nationals to travel freely across Tibet, which the Tibetans cannot do in their own homeland. This past year, I've interacted with so many Chinese friends. Many are from Hong Kong and mainland China. They express their solidarity and support with us by stating that Tibetans have suffered for so long under the CCP regime. Friends, we have one common enemy, that is the CCP regime. This brutal regime took away freedom, took away our rights, took away our human dignity. Today, China has not only a major colonial power in the world, but it has proven that the current CCP regime is a real enemy of democracy, real enemy of human rights, real enemy of freedom, justice, and equality. While the CCP regime continues to commit crimes against humanity, we in the free world must remind Western political and business leaders who are proponents of the CCP regime that they must not forget their fundamental values and principles, the universal human rights, for short-term gains by sleeping with the Chinese authoritarian regime. Friends, this is our responsibility. This is our responsibility to tell the world, and we must continue this. one day very soon. And we must unite, friends, and challenge the CCP regime altogether for freedom, justice, human rights, and democracy. Free Tibet! Free Taiwan! Free Hong Kong! Free Kyrgyzstan! Free Southern Mongolia! Thank you.
大會咧係會派發緊電子蠟燭，係咪？如果未有電子蠟燭咧，可以用電話開個。
For next is the candle lighting ceremony to remember who sacrificed in the Tiananmen Square in 4th of June. May I please ask all the audience to turn on the light or to turn on the candles if anyone gets one.
一點燭光咧係代表對六四亡民嘅悼念，亦都係我哋每一位有良知嘅人心存正義、追求公義、傳一點光、傳一個方向、傳一個信念不滅。
我哋而家一齊舉起我哋嘅燭光，聲討呢個屠夫政權，
結束一黨專政，
結束一黨專政，
追究屠城責任，
追究屠城責任，
打倒共產黨，
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 打倒共產黨，聲討屠夫政權，聲討屠夫政權，聲討屠夫政權。
討屠夫政權，
恢復香港，
時代革命，
恢復香港，
香港獨立，
唯一出路，
香港獨立，
唯一出路
Free Tibet， Free Hong Kong，
Free Hong Kong， Stop Uyghur genocide， Stop Uyghur genocide。
好，接落嚟係天安門母親周淑莊女士嘅錄音同埋英文嘅字幕。
Next will be the audio speech given by the Tiananmen mother Zhou Shuzhuang, and we will read out the English version after.
这是8964遇难者孙昌红的母亲周淑庄，我是他的姐姐孙昌琪。妈妈今年86岁了，患有脑血管病后遗症，因说话困难，还是由我替妈妈来表述。孙昌红是1989年清华大学的应届毕业生，当年6月4日凌晨，在长安街民族宫附近惨遭戒严部队枪杀，有前生痛难，被现场的学生送到邮电医院不治身亡。4日早上，随着昌明妹妹从天安门广场撤离出来，并经历了长安街上6路房、鸡蛋和坦克碾压人群后，我们都来不及安慰惊魂未定的妹妹，因为弟弟没有一起回来。不幸的消息传来了，昌荣已经不在人世了。记得6月5号，带着父母去邮电医院太平间去看弟弟。由于邮电医院就在长安街旁边，太平间地上躺满了被枪杀的学生和市民。我的几位同事先期到达，给弟弟擦去了脸上和身上的血迹。其中一个同事特意把自己的衬衫给弟弟换上，担心我的父母承受不了满身是血的弟弟。此生我永远也忘不了那一幕。昨天还是那么阳光，那么相信政府，不会向他们开枪的弟弟，此刻却躺在冰冷的地上。从此我们天上人间，阴阳两无论父母怎样撕心裂肺的痛苦， 都永远不能放弃。妈妈跪在地上，紧紧地抱着弟弟，那一点温度都没有的身体，一遍又一遍地抚摸着他那苍白的面颊。我们的亲人就这样被执政党和政府指挥的军队残忍地杀害。没有想到的是，这仅仅是痛苦的开始。33年来，执政党和政府对枪杀弟弟的罪行没有任何解释，反而是到任何他们所谓的敏感时期，对我们威胁、监视、控制，毫无人性可言。爸爸2009年寒冷离世，妈妈因弟弟的离开，3年都不肯在床上睡觉，长期的痛苦与思念让他患上脑血管病，生活不能自理。一个原本幸福的家庭就这样家破人亡了。请问执政党和政府，你们有没有摸着良心自问过，在中国首都北京的长安街上动用军队、坦克去枪杀手无寸铁的子民，只是因为他们反腐败、反官倒？这种史无前例的法西斯式暴行，不仅会载入中国史册，也会载入人类史册。33年来，我们不能，也不会忘却这痛苦的伤痛。真相、问责、赔偿，是我们始终坚持的3项诉求。6次惨案中，所有的遇难者和受伤者，你们的血绝不能白白的流，天终究会亮的。
Condemnation of June 4th in 2022 by Zhou Shuzhang, mother of June 4th victim, Duan Changlong. This is Zhou Shuzhang, mother of Duan Changlong, victim of June 4th in 1989, and I am his elder sister, Duan Changqi. My mother is 86 years old. She suffers from a sequela of cerebrovascular condition and has difficulty speaking, so I'll speak on her behalf. Duan Changlong was a fresh graduate of Tsinghua University in 1989. In the early morning of June 4th that year, he was shot in the left front chest by martial law troops near the Cultural Palace of Nationalities on Chang'an Avenue. He was rushed to the Post Hospital, now the Xidan campus of Peking Union Medical College Hospital, by the students at the scene and died there. On the morning of the 4th, Changlong's younger sister was evacuated from Tiananmen Square, then experienced 6 gas bombs and witnessed tanks crushing the crowd on Chang'an Avenue. Yet, we were not able to comfort our frightened sister because our brother did not come back together. The unfortunate news that Changlong was no longer alive then followed. I remember taking my parents to the morgue of the post hospital on the 5th of June to see my brother. Since the post hospital was right next to Chang'an Avenue, the morgue was full of students and citizens who were shot dead. Several of my colleagues arrived earlier and wiped the blood off my brother's face and body. One of them deliberately changed his shirt on my brother as he worried that my parents could not bear my brother being blood covered. I will never forget that scene in my life. Life was so bright the day before, and my brother, who believed that the government would not shoot them, was then lying on the cold ground. From then on, we were separated forever. No matter how heart-wrenchingly my parents cried, they would never be able to wake up my brother. Mother knelt on the ground and hugged my brother's whole body tightly, stroking his pale cheeks over and over again. A loved one was brutally killed by the ruling party and the army commanded by the government. What we didn't expect was that this was just the beginning of the pain.
有共产党执政的每一天，从1949年开始，他们的监狱里边不断的关进去放出来，关进去放出来，大家都有一个共同的目标，我们只希望过一个自由的生活，我们希望我们活得有尊严，但是就这一点，共产党也没有给我们。大家看到了今天的上海了吗？大家说上海人真可怜，他们终于知道自己只不过是活在自己的家里，自己的家也是一个监狱，他们才知道整个的中国都是一个监狱。他们还在嘲笑香港。好，他们今天知道了什么叫警察国家。今天我只是想告诉大家，习近平当众只是暴露了中国共产党罪恶的那一面而已，再换一个李克强也好不了哪里去。不要指望共产党给你们平反，那是血债，平不了反。今天的香港人跟我一样变成了流亡，我们都无家可归，我们的家无论是中国还是在香港，那就是我们的出生的地方，不是伦敦。这么多人现在在这里，有的人戴着口罩，有的人没戴口罩。这个口罩大家知道，就是从武汉传过来的病毒，而且这个病毒是一种谎言。病毒本身没有问题，但是病毒跟谎言加在一起，就进到了我们的肺里。通过这个瘟疫，大家知道什么是中国共产党。所以我希望在座的如果有西方人，有英国人，我希望你们能够听听这些中国人的声音，不要再传播共产党好的谎言，这是非常可怕的。这会让我们这些流亡在伦敦的年轻人、老人又要搬家。我只希望有一个自由的香港，有一个民主的中国，还有一个文明的世界。我希望大家把这12个字我们喊一遍，好吗？自由香港，民主中国，文明世界。谢谢大家。
接住落嚟咧係工黨行動支援香港呢個組織 ，Sacha Ismail。
Our next speaker will be Labour Movement Solidarity with Hong Kong, Sacha Ismail.
Oh, okay.
Hello everyone, my name is Sacha Ismail. I'm part of the campaign UK Labour Movement Solidarity with Hong Kong. Since 2019, Labour Movement Solidarity with Hong Kong has organised in the UK trade unions, Labour Party and political left to support Hong Kong's democracy struggle. We also work to involve Hong Kongers in the UK with the unions and the Labour movement. We demand freedom for jailed Hong Kong Labour activists, including Lee Chuk-yan, Carol Eng, Winnie Yu, Sid Ho, Lai Man Ling, Yung Yat Yi, Lung Kwok Hung, and Lau Shanqing, who was arrested today. We also demand freedom for Chinese activists, including Huang Zhuqin and Wan Jianbing, feminist and workers' rights campaigners who have been imprisoned in Guangzhou. And of course, we demand freedom for the hundreds of thousands of Uyghurs incarcerated because the Chinese state regards their very identity as a threat. Our campaign was involved in organising the protest here last year, and we're delighted to be speaking today. I think the Tiananmen Square protest showed, as many social upheavals have, something very important, which is the unique power of the working class in the fight for democracy. 1989 was not just a student movement, it was also a workers' movement. The Beijing Autonomous Workers' Federation fought for democracy in society, but also, crucially, in workplaces, as did workers' federations in other Chinese cities. The students in Tiananmen Square recognised the workers' power when they finally called for a general strike, and so did the Chinese regime when it crushed the working class protesters with the utmost brutality. Under capitalism, even in liberal states like Britain, most of social and economic life is outside democratic control. Productive resources are the property of a small minority, and they organise economics and society not for social needs, but to maximise their profits, as we're seeing horrendously in many societies now. Workplaces and corporations are authoritarian regimes, and dramatically unequal wealth and power stunt and warp even the political democracy that exists. A crucial part of expanding and deepening democracy is for workers to organise and fight for their rights, and that's why every form of authoritarian government is terrified of workers' organisation. Today, on June the 4th, we should rededicate ourselves to the fight for freedom, and crucially, that must mean a fight for free trade unions, free from the total state control of workers which exists in China and other dictatorships, but also free from the 1,000 bureaucratic restrictions which make most forms of workers' organisation and strikes illegal in the United Kingdom. The UK government and the Conservative Party are not friends of freedom, and since we've had a Conservative Party activist speaking here tonight, I think it's very important that I say that. This UK government, despite its rhetoric, will never challenge corporations like HSBC, which support the repression in Hong Kong. The Conservatives are suppressing and cutting down democracy here in the UK. Their new Police Act makes many forms of protest illegal, and now they want still more restrictions. They're proposing even more measures to criminalise strikes and unions. It almost seems as if the UK Conservative Party takes its inspiration from the CCP. Their Nationality and Borders Act viciously attacks migrants. How long before people from Hong Kong, China, the Uyghur region and Tibet come to the UK, flee to the UK to seek safety and freedom, but instead find themselves sent to camps in Rwanda? Shameful. Those who do make it here are often denied even the miserable rights that most UK citizens have, and in any case face unemployment, low-paid precarious work and crumbling services like the rest of us. Supporters of democracy in Hong Kong and China should challenge such inconsistency and hypocrisy. Most importantly, we should turn to the organised workers' movement, which is the only force capable of challenging all tyranny. That's a workers' movement in China, in Hong Kong, in Britain, in the US and all around the world. So thank you very much. Solidarity.
接住落嚟係反共聯盟代表 Nick Whitten。
Our next speaker will be Nick Whitten, the organizers of Downing Street protests with Ukrainian.
Friends, 你好嗎？你好，Tashi Delek, Kashi Elimiz. We have to face facts. The Chinese Communist Party is the most powerful organization in the world. Unfortunately, it is also a criminal organization, a mafia. It rules by control and fear. It is disciplined, organised and successful to a degree. And the Chinese Communist Party is also the greatest killing machine the world has ever known. More people have died at the hands and the policies of the Chinese Communist Party than any other government in human history. And that includes 1 million Tibetans, that's 1 in 7 of the Tibetan population, and it also includes 50 million Chinese. Are you proud of that, President Xi? Ambassador Zheng, are you proud to represent a criminal mafia? Democracy represents the civilized political future of our world. Democracy represents the rule of law. Democracy gives human rights a chance. That's what the brave young people in Tiananmen Square were asking for. We can best honour their memory by standing up to the Chinese Communist Party, by making sacrifices ourselves, and that means diverting government spending to defence, and also inevitably higher prices that will result from reducing our dependence economically on China. By making those sacrifices ourselves, we are giving hope to our children and to future generations that they will not have to endure the suffering that so many ordinary people endure in China and Russia today. China and Russia have told the world they have a no-limits partnership, and that is truly a partnership of evil. Friends, our unity is our strength. Honour the Tiananmen fallen with the word unity. U-N-I-T-Y. U stands for Uyghurs and Ukraine. N appears twice in Hong Kong. I is in southern Mongolia. T stands for Tiananmen, Tibet, Taiwan. And friends, what does Y stand for? Anyone want to guess? Y stands for you. Remember, the word unity is short for what brings us together and makes us stronger to take on the power of the Chinese Communist Party. We are stronger together. And I'd like you to raise your hands if you are going to come to rallies in the future. If you're going to come to these rallies, raise your hands. I want to see you. Hello? Oh, sorry, yeah. Thank you very much. So
時代革命！時代革命！打倒共產黨！走上舞台！共匪死3代！世界同情敵人！香港獨立！為人出路！
What does that mean?
Our next speaker will be former legislator
Fake can't film it.
123齊，呢個好啲啊！33週年，30年前，北京嘅學生同埋市民為咗中國嘅民主、法治、自由，喺天安門嘅廣場集會遊行。可恨嘅係，中共嘅獨裁政權不容表達民主嘅意見，用軍隊同埋坦克車武力鎮壓，令到千千萬萬嘅年青人同埋市民犧牲。由1989年開始，香港就成為支援中國民主運動嘅中心。每年6、4喺維園嘅一大片燭光，為中國嘅民主烈士同埋家屬帶來安慰同埋支持。可惜自從2020年成立咗國安法之後，中國同埋香港政府係利用國安法禁止香港和平遊行集會。國安法係可以禁止香港市民參與紀律活動，但係國安法係唔可能抹去我哋對6·4屠殺嘅記憶。國安法係唔可以阻止我哋嘅思想行動，繼續支持民主同埋自由。國安法亦都唔可以將我哋同香港隔離。喺香港有千千萬萬嘅年青人同埋香港市民，因為2019年嘅抗爭運動被捕。我哋唔可以忘記有幾千人因為反送中運動而被拘捕同埋拘獄同埋檢控。我哋唔可以忘記初選47人被拘禁超過1年。我哋更加唔可以忘記支聯會，佢哋喺呢30年裏邊